Hey, I'm Aria Bennett, and at 24 years old, I never thought my college graduation would turn into the most satisfying revenge story you'd ever hear. Picture this: me and my younger sister, Lila Bennett, standing together under the bright sun, both of us dressed in matching black caps and gowns, the air filled with the sound of cheering families and rustling programs. It should have been a moment of pure happiness, a shared triumph after years of hard work. But beneath those smiles, a deep well of unfair treatment had been building up inside me, leading to a day that would leave my parents speechless and pale. Their words still ring in my ears, cold and cutting. "She earned it, but you didn't." That moment came one chilly evening when my parents sat us down and decided to pour all their financial support into Lila's education, leaving me to figure things out on my own. Before I get to the stunning twist that made their faces drain of color at graduation, take a second to drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and hit that like button if you've ever had to fight twice as hard for something that seemed to come so easily to someone else in your life. I grew up in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Ohio, where our two-story house with its neat white picket fence looked like the picture of a perfect family life from the outside. The front yard had a small garden with roses that Mom tended to every weekend, and the living room walls were covered with framed family photos, each one showing us with forced smiles that hid the complicated truth underneath. My dad, Thomas Bennett, worked as an accountant, his days filled with numbers and spreadsheets, while my mom, Claire Bennett, taught history at the local middle school, her voice often echoing with lessons about the past. We weren't wealthy by any stretch, but we had enough to live comfortably, and I never thought financial struggles would shape my future. Yet, from the time I was little, my sister Lila, 2 years younger than me, stood out as the shining star in our parents' eyes. With her bright auburn hair that caught the light just right, her effortless academic success, and a natural charm that drew people in, she was everything they seemed to value. Me? I was the afterthought, the one they noticed only when I made too much noise or asked too many questions. The signs of their favoritism started early, and they stung more than I can describe. I still remember Christmas mornings, the living room lit by the tree's soft glow, the smell of pine and cinnamon in the air. Lila would tear into her presents, pulling out the latest toys or gadgets, things like a shiny new tablet or a fancy art set, while I unwrapped practical items like a pair of wool socks or a coloring book from the discount bin at the store. Lila needs to nurture her talents. Mom would explain when I dared to ask why the gifts were so different, her tone leaving no room for argument. Even at 6 or 7 years old, I could feel the unfairness settling into my chest, but I learned to push it down, to smile, and pretend it didn't hurt. Those moments taught me to be quiet, to not rock the boat, even when I wanted to shout that I deserved more too. As we grew older, the divide only grew wider, especially when it came to school events. Lila's science fairs were a big deal. Both Mom and Dad would take the day off work, their hands busy helping her build elaborate displays with blinking lights and detailed charts, the kitchen table covered in cardboard and glue. The night before, I'd hear them laughing together, planning how to make her project stand out. My art exhibitions, though, were a different story. I spent weeks pouring my heart into paintings and sculptures, staying up late with the smell of paint thinner filling my room, only to find that Dad might swing by for a distracted 10 minutes if he wasn't too busy, and Mom would pop in during her lunch break if she remembered. "Art's just a hobby, Aria," Dad would say with a shrug, his voice dismissive as he checked his watch. "It won't get you anywhere in life. Focus on something practical." Those words carved a space in me, a place where I started to doubt if my passions even mattered to them. Looking back, I can see how those early years shaped me, how they planted a seed of determination I didn't even know I had yet. But back then, all I felt was the weight of being second best, the one who had to prove herself while Lila basked in their approval. The only light in those dark times was my grandmother, Margaret Hayes. Every summer, we'd pack up and head to her peaceful lake house in Michigan, a place where the air smelled of fresh water and pine, and the sound of waves lapping against the shore became my comfort. She'd sit with me for hours on the porch, watching as I sketched the lake and the tall oaks that lined its edge, her eyes soft with pride. "You see the world in a way others miss, Aria," she'd tell me, her voice warm and steady. Don't let anyone dim that light. Those words stuck with me, a lifeline when I felt invisible at home. In her cluttered attic library, with its dusty shelves and the faint scent of old paper, I found escape. I'd pull down books about successful entrepreneurs and leaders who had turned their struggles into triumphs, people like Oprah Winfrey and Elon Musk, reading late into the night with a flashlight under the covers. Those stories ignited a dream in me, a quiet promise that I could prove my worth, not just to my parents, but to myself. I started to imagine a future where my hard work would shine brighter than their doubts, where I could build something they couldn't ignore. Those summers with Grandma Margaret became my sanctuary, a place where I began to believe I was more than the afterthought they made me feel like. As I moved into high school, those early lessons of resilience started to take root, though I didn't realize it at the time. I threw myself into every business-related club I could find, determined to carve out a space where my skills could shine. Economics and math became my strong suits, and I discovered a natural talent that even my most supportive teachers, like Mr. Larson, couldn't help but notice. He'd stay after class sometimes, going over my work with a grin, saying things like, "Aria, you've got a head for this. Better than half the kids here." Winning the state business plan competition as a sophomore was a turning point. I spent weeks crafting my proposal, late nights with the hum of my laptop and the scratch of my pencil, presenting it with sweaty palms to a room full of judges. When they announced my name, the rush of pride was overwhelming. Mr. Larson called my parents that night, his voice full of excitement as he told them how exceptional my work was. I stood in the kitchen, heart pounding, waiting for their reaction. "That's sweet," Mom said after hanging up, her eyes already drifting to Lila's debate notes on the counter. "Did you help Lila with her prep? She's got a big match tomorrow." That was the pattern. My wins were footnotes, quickly overshadowed by Lila's next achievement. Junior year brought a new layer of challenge. I took a job at a local diner, the smell of frying bacon and coffee grounds becoming a familiar backdrop to my evenings. I worked the late shift, balancing trays with tired hands, saving every dollar I could because some instinct told me I'd need it. Despite the 25-hour workweeks, I kept my 4.0 GPA, staying up late with textbooks under a dim desk lamp, the quiet hum of the house my only company. Lila, meanwhile, joined the debate team and quickly became their star. Mom and Dad attended every tournament, their cheers echoing in my memory, followed by celebratory dinners at restaurants with candlelit tables and the clink of glasses. I'd hear about it later, the stories of Lila's victories filling the car rides home, while my diner tips stayed tucked away in a jar under my bed. Senior year arrived with the weight of college applications. Lila, having skipped a grade with her academic prowess, ended up in the same graduating class as me. We both set our sights on Crestwood University, known for its top-tier business and law programs. The day the acceptance letters came, my hands trembled as I tore open the thick envelope from the business school. "I got in," I shouted at dinner, my voice bubbling with joy, the table lit by the soft glow of our chandelier. Dad barely glanced up from his phone, scrolling through emails. "Good for you, Aria," he mumbled. Minutes later, Lila burst through the door, waving her letter like a flag. I got into the law program. The room transformed. Dad jumped up. Mom enveloped her in a tight hug, and they pulled out champagne for the adults and sparkling cider for us. "We always knew you'd shine," Mom gushed to Lila, her words washing over me like I hadn't spoken at all. 2 weeks later, the real blow landed. We sat for a rare family dinner, the table set with Mom's best dishes, the smell of roasted chicken filling the air. Dad folded his hands and said, "We need to discuss college plans." His eyes locked on Lila, ignoring me completely. "We've been saving for you since you were little. Crestwood's tuition is steep, but we'll cover it all so you can focus." Lila beamed, her smile lighting up the room. I waited, heart sinking, assuming they'd saved for me too, until the silence grew heavy. "What about my tuition?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The temperature seemed to drop. They exchanged uneasy glances, and Dad spoke slowly. "Aria, we only have enough for one." Lila's shown more promise. Investing in her makes the most sense. Mom reached over, patting my hand with a forced smile. You've always been independent. Take out loans, maybe start at a community college. Then came the words that shattered me. She earned it, but you didn't. I stared at them, the betrayal cutting deeper than I'd expected, the clatter of forks against plates suddenly deafening in my ears. That night, I locked myself in my room, the tears I'd held back for years finally spilling over. The soft glow of my bedside lamp cast shadows on the walls as I sat on my bed, the weight of 17 years of trying to earn their love crashing down. My 4.0 GPA, my competition wins, my acceptance to Crestwood, all of it meant nothing to them. I felt like I'd never be enough, and that realization broke something inside me. The next morning, puffy-eyed and exhausted, I confronted them in the kitchen, the smell of brewing coffee mixing with my shaky resolve. How could you save for Lila, but not me? My voice cracked despite my efforts to stay strong. Mom stirred her coffee, sighing deeply. It's complicated, Arya. We had to make tough choices with our resources. I have better grades than Lila, I argued, my hands trembling. I've worked part-time for 2 years while keeping perfect marks. How is that not dedication? Dad snapped his newspaper shut, the sound sharp in the quiet room. Lila's always been focused. Your job and those hobbies distracted you. Her law path is secure. Your business ideas are a long shot. You never even asked about my plans, I whispered, the hurt raw in my throat. We'll help you with loan applications, Mom interjected quickly. Lots of students manage on their own. The conversation ended there, their decision carved in stone. I was the less worthy daughter in their eyes. I couldn't stay in that house. That weekend, I drove the 2 hours to Grandma Margaret's lake house, the road winding through green fields, my mind a storm of emotions. I poured out the whole story to her, sitting on her porch with the lake stretching out before us, the sound of crickets filling the air. She listened without interrupting, her weathered hands gripping mine tightly. My darling girl, she finally said, wiping away my tears with a gentle touch. Sometimes life's hardest moments become your greatest spark. Your parents are wrong, deeply, tragically wrong. But you have a fire they can't see. Promise me you'll go to Crestwood anyway. I nodded, her belief igniting something in me. She couldn't offer financial help. Her fixed income barely covered her bills, but she gave me something priceless, unwavering faith in my potential. Back home, I threw myself into action. I spent weeks researching scholarships, grants, work-study programs, and student loans, my desk buried under papers and my laptop glowing late into the night. My guidance counselor, Mrs. Patel, stayed after school to guide me through the maze of applications, her office a cluttered sanctuary of hope. I've rarely seen a student with your drive, she said as we submitted my 20th application, her smile encouraging. Small scholarships trickled in, but they weren't enough to cover Crestwood's steep tuition. With a mix of federal loans and private ones co-signed by Grandma Margaret, I pieced together enough for my first year. Housing was next. While Lila would live in the luxurious on-campus dorms paid for by our parents, I scoured online forums and found a tiny apartment an hour from campus, sharing it with 3 strangers I'd never met. I applied to every job within reach, and 2 weeks before move-in, I landed a gig at a bustling cafe near campus, plus weekend shifts at a dusty secondhand bookstore. Move-in day was a stark contrast. My parents loaded Lila into our family SUV, the back packed with her new laptop, designer clothes, and dorm decor, their laughter drifting through the open windows. I followed in my decade-old sedan, its engine groaning with every mile, the back seat stuffed with secondhand suitcases and grocery store boxes. No one offered to check my car before the 2-hour drive, and as we parted at the campus entrance, them heading to Lila's premium dorm, me continuing alone to my distant flat, Mom called out, "Good luck, Arya. Hope it works out." The doubt in her voice only hardened my resolve. This wouldn't just work out. I'd make it a triumph. My apartment was a shock. Peeling paint flaked onto the floor. The plumbing groaned with every use, and my roommate's arguments filtered through thin walls. That first night, alone on a thin mattress with the hum of traffic outside, The enormity of my challenge hit me. Could I really juggle 30 work hours and a full course load? Would the constant financial strain derail my grades? Just as despair crept in, my phone buzzed with a text from Grandma Margaret. "Diamonds are forged under pressure. You're already shining." Those words dried my tears, and I pulled out a notebook, mapping every hour of the coming weeks with meticulous care. Sleep would be scarce, my social life nearly non-existent, but my education and future were non-negotiable. Freshman year swept over me like a tidal wave. While most students adjusted to college life with carefree excitement, I was balancing 30 hours of work with a packed schedule of business classes. My days began at 5 a.m. with a 2-hour study session, the early morning silence broken only by the scratch of my pen. Then I'd rush to the cafe, the smell of freshly ground coffee and sizzling pastries filling my lungs, before heading to lectures and ending with late shifts at the bookstore, the musty scent of old pages my companion. Sleep became a luxury I stole in short bursts, often crashing on a couch between shifts. I learned to read textbooks on the bus, scribble assignments during lunch breaks, and replay recorded lectures while wiping down counters, every minute stretched to its limit. The contrast with Lila's life was glaring. Through occasional texts and her vibrant social media posts, I glimpsed her world: sorority mixers with laughter and music, study abroad info sessions with glossy brochures, and weekends back home for mom's homemade lasagna. Meanwhile, I calculated if I could afford both my calculus textbook and a week's groceries, often skipping meals to make ends meet. Despite the grueling pace, something unexpected happened. My business classes weren't just manageable, they ignited me. Years of budgeting and diner shifts had honed skills my peers lacked. While they fumbled with basic accounting, I applied those principles to my own financial tightrope, earning praise from Professor Hayes, who stopped me after class one day. "Ms. Bennett, your analysis of resource allocation was brilliant. There's a maturity in your work that stands out," she said, her words a rare boost. A lifeline emerged in my roommate, Maya. She noticed my punishing schedule and began leaving homemade meals, warm stews or fresh bread, in the fridge with my name scrawled on a note. One night, utterly drained, I found her waiting up, a cup of chamomile tea in hand. "You can't keep this up," she said bluntly. "You'll burn out." When I explained my situation, her face shifted to indignation. "That's beyond unfair," she declared. "From now on, I'm your college family." Maya became my rock. She edited my papers when fatigue blurred my words, made flashcards for exams, and guarded my study time from interruptions. When she caught me skipping meals, she insisted on cooking for us both, accepting only help with her assignments in return. "My parents taught me family takes care of each other," she said simply. "Sometimes the family we choose matters more." Sophomore year tested my limits. The cafe cut hours due to a seasonal slump, slashing my income by nearly 40%. My carefully built budget crumbled overnight, with rent due and tuition payments looming. Panic gripped me as I sat at my wobbly kitchen table, surrounded by overdue bills. Then I remembered Miss Carter from the financial aid office, her kind face a beacon for my first week. I made an emergency appointment, and after reviewing my case, she offered a lifeline. "Your grades qualify you for an emergency grant," she explained, "and Professor Hayes recommended you for a research assistant role in the business department. It pays better and looks great on a resume." That position became a turning point. Working with Hayes on a study of small business resilience, I found flexible hours and intellectual stimulation that outshone my cafe grind. More than that, Hayes took a personal interest. "Have you considered entrepreneurship?" she asked one afternoon as we pored over survey data. "Your take on turning constraints into innovation is sophisticated." That seed, planted years ago with Grandma Margaret's books, began to sprout. Inspired, I used skills from my marketing and digital media classes to launch a virtual assistant platform targeting local small businesses. Late nights were spent building a website, the glow of my screen my only light, crafting service packages based on insights from Hayes research. By junior year, the business earned enough to ditch the bookstore job. I hired 2 fellow students as part-time help, turning classroom theories into real growth. My confidence soared. Classmates sought my advice on projects, and professors began citing my work. Lila, meanwhile, faced her first real hurdle. Her law thesis exposed gaps in her research skills, years of coasting on talent, and parental support leaving her unprepared. One rainy Tuesday, she knocked on my door, teary-eyed, clutching her laptop and a mess of papers. "I'm failing my thesis seminar," she confessed. "Professor Grant says my methodology is a disaster, and I've got 3 weeks to fix it, or I might not graduate." I felt a mix of emotions. Part of me relished the karmic justice, but another part saw a chance to rise above the past. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. "Let's figure it out." That night marked the start of our study sessions, and as I guided her through academic rigor, something shifted. We began to talk, really talk, for the first time. "How do you manage it all?" she asked one night, her voice awed as we took a break, the rain tapping against the window. I laid out my 60-hour weeks, the financial tightrope, the sleepless nights. "I had no idea," she whispered, shock in her eyes. "Mom and Dad always said you were doing fine." "Fine's relative," I replied. "I've gone without meals and sleep to get here. Did you think I chose this?" Her naivety stung, but it opened a door. "Would it have changed anything if I'd told you?" I asked. She fell silent, and that question began to reshape our bond. As Lila's thesis improved, her support grew. She started declining Mom and Dad's lavish gifts, opting to manage on her own like me, a quiet rebellion that warmed my heart. Senior year arrived with momentum I'd never imagined. My virtual assistant business evolved into a digital marketing agency, serving 15 regular clients and employing 4 part-time students. A local entrepreneurship magazine featured us, bringing a flood of new clients and solidifying my reputation. Academically, I shone, making the dean's list every semester, winning departmental awards, and presenting at a regional conference. Each success fueled my drive to prove my path was as valid as Lila's, perhaps more so. Graduation loomed, and my parents planned a grand party for Lila, with a tepid invite extended to me. "We figured you'd be busy," Mom said when I mentioned it, her tone dismissive. Grandma Margaret arrived the day before, gifting me a custom stole embroidered with diamonds are made under pressure, her eyes shining with pride. At rehearsal, Dean Ellis pulled me aside with a conspiratorial grin. "Everything's set for tomorrow," she whispered. "Be ready for a spotlight moment." The ceremony began. Degrees conferred, Grandma's whistle cutting through the applause. Then President Larson called me for the student address. I spoke of resilience, turning doubt into strength, my words a subtle challenge to my parents. The crowd erupted. Larson returned. Aria Bennett, valedictorian with a 4.0, winner of the National Business Innovation Competition, and self-funded through jobs and a 6-figure business. Gasps filled the air. She's joining Horizon Consulting, featured in Entrepreneur Today. My parents' faces paled as the audience roared. A new scholarship in my name sealed it. Lila hugged me, whispering, "They were so wrong." At the family dinner, their forced cheer faded under relative scrutiny. "We'll help with your apartment," Dad offered. "No need," I said. "My $90,000 salary covers it." Their regret flickered, but my worth was mine. The celebration with my true supporters, Maya, Hayes, Dean Ellis, outshone their event. Offers poured in, including an MBA scholarship. At dinner, their apology opened a fragile bridge. Lila and I grew closer, our bond real. A year later, I founded a scholarship for determined students, my parents' pride finally pure. My lesson? Their doubt fueled my rise. Their limits didn't define me, my value always did. Have you faced such skepticism? Share below, like, and subscribe if this inspired you. Let's soar beyond their narrow views together. The celebration with my true supporters, Maya, Professor Hayes, and Dean Ellis, unfolded in the business school atrium, a stark contrast to the tense family dinner. The room buzzed with laughter and the clink of crystal punch bowls, the air filled with the scent of elegant hors d'oeuvres and the rustle of congratulatory banners. Maya rushed over, enveloping me in a tight hug before introducing herself to Grandma Margaret and Lila with a warm smile. "I've heard so much about you both," she said, her eyes twinkling. The wise grandmother and the sister who's finally waking up. Lila blushed, accepting the gentle tease with a nod. "Better late than never, I hope." Dean Ellis approached next, handing out champagne flutes with a beaming grin. "The woman of the hour," she declared, passing a glass to Grandma Margaret. "And this must be the grandmother who believed in her from the start." As they chatted, I watched Lila take in this network of people who'd seen my worth when my parents hadn't. The difference from their conditional approval was palpable, a warmth that filled the space where their neglect had once been. A distinguished woman in a sleek business suit, Jennifer Hart from Horizon Consulting, approached our group. "Your presentation at the competition was extraordinary," she said, shaking my hand firmly. "I'm thrilled you've accepted our offer." "Thank you for the opportunity," I replied, my voice steady despite the thrill. "I'm excited to join your team." Jennifer smiled warmly. "With your blend of academic excellence and real-world experience, you're exactly what we need. Few graduates have built a business from scratch like you have." As she moved on, Lila's expression shifted to shock. "You didn't tell me you'd be working for Horizon Consulting. That's one of the top firms in the country." I smiled modestly. "It came up fast after the competition. The salary's significant, probably more than Dad makes." Lila's thoughtful nod showed she was piecing together the scale of my success. The afternoon continued with speeches from faculty and the presentation of departmental awards. Professor Hayes handed me the Outstanding Entrepreneurship Award, her eyes misty as she recounted my journey from a determined freshman to a business owner and department standout. "Aria's story is a testament to resilience," she said, her voice carrying across the room. I introduced Grandma Margaret to everyone who'd supported me. Professors who'd mentored me, classmates turned business associates, staff who'd helped with financial aid, each sharing a memory of how I'd impressed them. "I had no idea," Lila murmured after the 10th such introduction, her voice soft with awe. "All these people admire you so much." Midway through, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "The family is gathering at the rental house for dinner at 6. Please join us. We want to celebrate both our graduates." I showed it to Lila and Grandma Margaret. "What do you think, Grandma?" she snorted. "A bit late to play proud parents now, isn't it?" Lila looked conflicted. "They're trying, I guess, in their own way." "We don't have to decide now," I said, pocketing my phone. "Let's enjoy this moment first." As the reception wound down, Professor Hayes approached with a campus photographer. "The business magazine wants a photo of you with your family for the feature article. Are they here?" The question created an awkward pause. "My grandmother and sister are here," I replied carefully, glancing at Grandma Margaret and Lila. "My parents are elsewhere right now." Understanding dawned in Hayes' eyes. "The family that matters is the one that supports you," she said kindly. "Let's get a photo of you three." The photographer arranged us near the business school emblem, Grandma Margaret beaming with an arm around each of us, Lila and me in our graduation regalia, my special stole prominently displayed. The click of the camera captured a moment of true belonging, a stark contrast to the family photos of my childhood. As we left, Dean Ellis handed me a business card. "The Dean of Admissions at Crestwood's MBA program asked me to pass this along. They're very interested in discussing a full scholarship if you consider further studies while working." The opportunities unfolding before me stood in sharp relief against the future my parents had once dismissed. "Should we go to the family dinner?" I asked as we walked to Maya's car, the campus lights twinkling in the evening. Grandma Margaret took my hand, her grip firm. "That decision is yours, my dear. You owe them nothing. But," she added after a pause, "there might be value in letting them see who you've become. Not for their sake, but for yours." Lila nodded. "Plus, I'd love to see Uncle James grill them about why they never mentioned your awards." Decision made, we drove to the rental house where extended family had gathered. Conversations hushed as we entered, then erupted into enthusiastic greetings as relatives rushed to congratulate both Lila and me. Mom appeared from the kitchen, her usual confident demeanor replaced by nervous energy. "Arya, you came," she said, attempting a warm smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "We were just about to serve dinner." Dad approached with forced joviality. "There's my successful daughters," he announced loudly, as if he'd been bragging about me all along. "Arya, why didn't you tell us about this big consulting job?" The audacity of his question, after years of disinterest, left me momentarily speechless. Before I could respond, Uncle James interjected. "Probably because you haven't asked about her plans in 4 years, Thomas," he said bluntly. "Not in any gathering I've attended, at least." An uncomfortable silence fell, Dad's face flushing with a mix of embarrassment and anger. "We've always supported both our daughters," he insisted defensively. "Financially?" Aunt Susan asked innocently, her tone cutting. The university president seemed pretty clear about Arya putting herself through school while building a business. Mom jumped in quickly. "We had limited resources and had to make difficult choices. Arya has always been very independent. Independent by necessity, not by choice," Grandma Margaret corrected sharply. "Let's not rewrite history now that her success has become inconvenient to your narrative." The tension thickened, cousins exchanging uneasy glances as my parents struggled to maintain composure under this unexpected scrutiny. The family dinner proceeded with strained conversation, the clatter of plates and the murmur of voices filling the rental house. My relatives, seeing me through new eyes, directed questions about my business and career plans, their curiosity a belated acknowledgement of my achievements. With each detail I shared, the agency's growth, the competition win, my parents' discomfort grew, their forced smiles tightening as the magnitude of what they dismissed became undeniable. By the time dessert was served, a chocolate cake Mom had baked with trembling hands, the family dynamics had shifted noticeably. Where my parents had once been the authoritative center of gatherings, their judgment now stood questioned, their credibility undermined by the daughter they deemed less worthy. As relatives departed, they offered warm congratulations and, in several cases, business cards and promises of professional connections. The extended family's recognition, though late, felt genuinely validating, a balm to the years of neglect. When only immediate family remained, Dad attempted a conciliatory gesture. "Arya, your mother and I have been discussing, and we'd like to help with the security deposit on an apartment near your new job as a graduation gift." The offer, so small compared to the 4 years of tuition they'd provided Lila, would once have meant everything to me. Now, it felt almost insulting in its inadequacy. "Thank you," I replied evenly, "but that won't be necessary. My starting salary at Horizon Consulting will be $90,000 annually, plus performance bonuses. My housing is quite secure." The figure landed like a physical blow, Dad's expression cycling through shock, disbelief, and finally a grudging recognition that the daughter he'd overlooked had surpassed his own achievements. "Well," he said finally, struggling to maintain composure, "you've certainly proven yourself capable." "Yes," I agreed simply, "I have. Not that I needed to prove anything to anyone but myself." The admission hung in the air, a quiet assertion of my independence. As we prepared to leave, Lila pulled me aside. "I'm staying with Grandma Margaret for a few days before moving to my new apartment. Would you want to join us? Like a mini family vacation with the people who actually matter." The suggestion, so simple yet profound in its redefinition of family, brought unexpected tears to my eyes. "I'd love that," I whispered. As we departed, leaving my parents standing uncertainly in the doorway of their rented showcase house, I felt a century's worth of weight lifting from my shoulders. Their approval, once desperately sought, had become irrelevant in the face of my own verified worth. The weeks following graduation brought a whirlwind of changes. I moved into a comfortable apartment near the Horizon Consulting offices, using part of my competition winnings for the security deposit and furnishings, the space a reflection of my hard-earned stability. My small business continued to thrive under the management of my student team, now properly employed with fair wages and flexible schedules to balance their studies. The promised magazine feature was published, complete with a photo of Grandma Margaret, Lila, and me at graduation, the article detailing my journey from a self-financing freshman to an award-winning entrepreneur and consulting hire. I sent copies to Professor Hayes, Dean Ellis, and everyone else who'd supported me. Their responses, notes of pride and congratulations, filling my inbox with warmth. My relationship with my parents entered uncertain territory. 2 weeks after graduation, they requested a Sunday lunch meeting at a neutral restaurant, the hum of conversation and the clink of cutlery creating a neutral ground. The conversation was awkward, the air thick with unspoken tension, but it marked their first genuine attempt to reconcile. "We've done a lot of thinking," Mom began carefully, her hands twisting a napkin, "about the choices we made and the assumptions that guided them." Dad, less comfortable with emotional discussions, added stiffly, "We may have misjudged your potential." The understatement was almost laughable given recent events, but I recognized that acknowledgement, however inadequate, was a significant step for them. "Yes, I agreed simply, you did. We'd like to try to repair our relationship," Mom continued, her voice hesitant, "if you're willing." I considered their request, the wounded child in me wanting to reject them outright, to mirror the pain they'd inflicted. But the woman I'd become saw that continuing that cycle would only prolong the damage. "I'm open to developing a new relationship," I said finally, my tone measured, "but it would need to be just that. New. Built on who I actually am, not who you thought I was or wished I'd be." Dad nodded, his usual confidence subdued. "That seems fair. And it would require acknowledgement," I added, "that what happened wasn't just a misunderstanding or an unfortunate circumstance. It was favoritism that caused real harm." The requirement clearly made them uncomfortable, but after a glance between them, they nodded. "We did favor Lila," Mom admitted quietly, her eyes downcast. "We saw her as the safer investment because she fit our expectations of success. We were wrong, and our mistake hurt you deeply. I'm truly sorry, Arya." The genuine accountability, though imperfect, opened a door to possible healing, though the path ahead would be neither quick nor easy. Over the summer, I settled into a productive rhythm with my consulting work at Horizon, the office's sleek design and bustling energy, a far cry from my diner days. I maintained regular contact with Lila and Grandma Margaret, our bond strengthening with each call. Lila secured an entry-level position with a nonprofit focused on educational equity, a choice that seemed influenced by her newfound awareness of privilege and opportunity gaps. "I keep thinking about how different our paths were," she confessed during one of our weekly sister dinners, the clink of our coffee mugs a comforting sound. "And how many students face what you did, but without your drive to overcome it." Her growing social consciousness pleased me more than any apology could, a sign she was shedding the golden child role our parents had crafted. By autumn, I'd found a steady pace, my first performance review at Horizon bringing praise from senior partners and an unexpected bonus, the financial security I'd chased for years finally within reach. During a weekend visit to Grandma Margaret's lake house, she presented me with a small wooden box as we sat on her porch, the sunset painting the water in hues of orange and pink. "I've been saving this for the right moment," she explained, her voice soft. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet, its links catching the fading light. "This was given to me by my grandmother when I finished school," she said. "She told me it's a reminder that a woman's worth comes from within, not from others' judgments. I've held it for a granddaughter who truly understand." As she fastened it around my wrist, she added, "Your journey was harder than it should have been, Arya. But the woman you've become through that struggle is extraordinary in ways an easier path might never have revealed." Her words crystallized a truth I'd felt but struggled to name, that the unfairness, while unjust, had forged strengths integral to my success.
On the 1-year anniversary of graduation, I used a portion of my savings and business profits to establish the Aria Bennett Resilience Scholarship at Crestwood University. Unlike traditional awards focused solely on grades, this fund supported students demonstrating extraordinary determination in overcoming family or financial obstacles. The selection committee should consider not just where students are, I instructed when finalizing the endowment, but what they've overcome to get there. The first recipient, a young woman working 2 jobs while studying accounting and caring for her siblings, mirrored my own struggle, but with the support I'd lacked. My parents, gradually earning limited trust through consistent effort, attended the scholarship announcement. As they listened to my speech about creating opportunity ladders, I noticed a shift in their expressions. Not just regret, but genuine pride untainted by comparison. "You've created something meaningful," Dad acknowledged afterward. The closest he'd come to true admiration. Mom added, "You've turned your pain into purpose. That's rare and valuable." While these small recognitions mattered, I'd learned the deepest lesson. External validation, even from parents, paled beside my own conviction. My worth hadn't changed when they finally saw it. Their perception had simply caught up to a reality that had always been mine. Lila and I continued nurturing our authentic sisterhood, untangling it from the comparative framework our parents had imposed. During a Saturday hiking trip, the crunch of leaves underfoot and the whisper of wind through the trees setting a reflective mood, she asked, "Do you think you'll ever fully forgive them?" I considered it carefully as we reached a scenic overlook, the valley stretching out below us. "Forgiveness isn't a single decision," I replied finally. "It's an ongoing process of releasing the expectation that the past could have been different. I don't think I'll ever forget being told I wasn't worth investing in," I continued honestly. "But I'm working toward not letting that moment define my relationship with them going forward. That's the forgiveness I'm capable of right now." Lila nodded thoughtfully. For what it's worth, their greatest loss was not knowing who you really were all those years. As I gazed out over the vast landscape, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. From the devastated teen hearing, "She earned it, but you didn't," to the accomplished professional lifting others up. The real victory wasn't just proving them wrong, though that satisfaction lingered. It was discovering that their assessment had never defined me. I had always been capable, valuable, worthy of investment. Their failure to see it reflected their limits, not mine. Perhaps that's the greatest realization for anyone underestimated. Your value exists beyond others' ability to recognize it. Have you ever been doubted by someone whose opinion once shaped your worth? Share your story below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if this journey of overcoming expectations resonated with you. Thank you for joining me. May my story inspire you to see your own inherent worth, no matter who fails to recognize it.